It's Aloha Friday, gonna swim, bike, and race day. Woo! And it's breakfast with Bob.
And Poncho Man, welcome to day 5. Breakfast with Bob from Kona and Huggo's on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Master Spas, SFuels, Go Longer, HOKA, Let's Fly, deboer, wetsuits, Form Smart Swim Goggles, Zoot Sports, original triathlon brand, Quintana, Premium Plus Sports, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. Our next guest, 3-time Ironman World Champion, the great Craig Alexander joins us. How you doing, Craig?
I'm doing good, Bob. How are you?
Spectacular. This isn't a bad place.
It's not a bad office you have here.
Now, how many years did it take for you to go from coming over here and going, man, I wish I was racing, to this is sort of nice?
Probably quicker than you'd think. No, seriously, the first probably year or two, you're, I guess, wondering if your decision was the right one to step away from this race, because I felt physically I could still compete.
And you were still racing?
Yeah, I was racing over the shorter distances and holding my own, not embarrassing myself. But it was the right decision, because this is not just a physical race. There's so much more that goes into it, so much more you as an athlete need to put into it, and so much more that you need from those around you. And, you know, I'd been, I guess, doing it for a long time. I'd had so much great help, and I just felt it was the right time. So really, yeah, no regrets, but certainly on race morning, those first couple of years when the cannon fires, you think, am I in the right place here?
I missed the start. What was I doing? When I look back at your career, and you come over here first time in 07 and get second place, right? And then win the next couple, got the formula down. Then in 2010, Chris McCormick sort of mobilizes Timo Brock and Norman Stadler and Ferris and everybody else. They're like, we need to attack Rowie between Waikoloa and Kauai High, between Kauai High and Hawaii and back, and get a gap, or else he's going to win his third in a row. And they sort of did that, but you came away from that and sort of reinvented yourself.
Yeah, well, they didn't sort of do it, they did do it. It happened.
They got 8 minutes.
They got a lot of time, and it was interesting because I was still with a lot of the main contenders myself in that race.
Yeah.
So I think they were looking at me. It wasn't an ideal scenario to give up that much time, but it was, you know, they say everything happens for a reason, and it gave me a chance to go away and evaluate different things. I think every athlete would like to think that they're consistent, that they're versatile, that they have, you know, a few strings to their bow. And I did have a formula that worked well here, which was swim close to the front, mark most of the main contenders on the bike. There's going to be a few guys who get away because they were just superior cyclists. But if you run close to a 240, you're going to be somewhere near the pointy end. And that had worked well. But I think 2010 was good for me. It gave me an opportunity to go away. I changed my equipment. I changed my training a little bit. And I certainly changed my mindset. I thought, you know, I want to be one of the aggressors on the bike. I want to be one of the guys making the moves, just not responding to them. And it was a very satisfying turnaround personally and just, I think, professionally as an athlete. It's validating to know you can do it in, you know, more than one way.
Well, and you win 70.3 Worlds that year. You win Ironman Worlds. You break the course record. Everything went right. And you come off of that race. And I do love it when athletes, Paul Newby Fraser, when she collapsed in 95, her whole mentality was, I have to beat the front. I have to beat the front. And the following year, she's like, listen, I'm just going to mix it up with the other women. And if I win, I win, but I'm not going to go out there feeling like I have to go off the front. So changing the way you approach a race, it can be difficult, but it can be freeing as well.
Absolutely, and I think that mindset piece that you mentioned is everything. I mean, I was listening to Mark talk at the Legacy Breakfast yesterday, and he was talking about, he thought he had to come here and be Dave, but he worked out it was okay to come here and be Mark. And I think every athlete needs to sort of find that balance. Of course, you look at what the great athletes are doing. We model behavior and what the best people do, but really you need to adapt it for yourself, your own personality. I think it's most important just to come here and really be thankful that you're here, be proud of yourself for getting here, and just be happy.
I think the hard part about being a professional athlete is you want to race every weekend. You want to be in the best shape, and you want to peak for everyone. Yeah. So that year in 2011, you win 70.3 Worlds. Then you set the course record here. And normally, you wouldn't do another Ironman until the following Kona. Focus on 70.3, jump into some Olympics. You like to do that as well. But they launched, was it Ironman Melbourne? and there was the Greg Welch Cup, one of your heroes, and that was in March, if I'm not mistaken. And so at that point, you had to validate too. You had to go do another race. So you go there and have an unbelievable race with Cam Brown. It wasn't, hey, I'm just going to go validate and cruise through this. I think you ran, 237, 238 to win the race?
Yep.
Without plated shoes back then. And do you feel that within 6 months, 3 world-class performances, how did that affect you in the long run?
Yeah, looking back with hindsight, it was, I think, a turning point. I was 38, turning 39. We had 3 kids. I had a few other little ventures. Obviously, the more success you have, which is what you crave as an athlete, the more demands there are on your time. And it was one of my better performances, Melbourne. I certainly wasn't what I would call Kona fit, but I wasn't unfit.
Right.
But it was one of the only Ironmans that I ever did in a cooler climate, which was mind-blowing how much different that is. So, yeah, I think I ran a 237, pushed all the way by Cam Brown. And
Ran 240.
Yeah. Freddie Van Leerd ran a 241, and Nico Lanos was in the race. It was outside of Kona, it was one of the best fields I ever raced in. I was highly motivated because, as you mentioned, it was the first year they had regional championships, and in Asia Pacific, they honoured Greg and McKeely by naming the titles after them. So,
got to be there.
Got to be there, but it was a disrupted build-up. I mean, I won Kona in October. I had 2 trips to the US in January, which is kind of peak training time for a March race. But they're the things, and they're the challenges that you have. The more you win and the more success you have, and you look at, I think, the current generation of athletes, I think it's even more so, with more social media, more exposure, more attention. Those obligations. It seems to me that the current crop of superstars are busier than we ever were. So I think that's part of your job, though. You need to learn to manage all of those things, but still be able to check all of the performance boxes that are non-negotiable come race day.
So let's talk about Ozzy. Your son had was he running at the time when you first noticed something was wrong?
Yeah, you know the story well. It was about 14 months ago now. Very healthy, fit, young kid. We're at an athletics carnival, a championship athletics meet, actually at the Olympic Stadium in Sydney. He'd run his 800 metres, and it was an hour or two later, he was just going for a cool-down jog with some of his teammates, and he suffered a spinal stroke, which even saying that now seems ridiculous.
How old?
He was 13.
Unbelievable.
And it turned our lives upside down overnight. I mean, we went from a school athletics carnival to the children's hospital. He was completely paralysed from his chest down. 12 hours later, the prognosis initially wasn't very good at all. I'm lucky I have a very strong wife. I still get emotional thinking about it, but yeah. And Ozzy, he's a tough kid. I think, like most children, they see the best in things, and they just want to get back to doing the things that they love to do. So he was always highly motivated. Neri's connections in the medical field were just invaluable. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to you as well, because you reached out through the Challenger Athletes Foundation, put me in touch with doctors, and also had Carlos Melita reach out more recently. The triathlon family, the triathlon community is amazing. So, but fast forward 14 months, he's doing great. We're back to, he can walk, he's back at school. We're back to a lot of the things. I took him surfing last week for the first time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're still, the rehab is ongoing. We still do 60 to 90 minutes of rehab every day, and that'll be the case moving forward for who knows how long. As long as Ozzy wants to keep it up, he's driving the whole thing. It's his goals and ambitions. He's, like most kids, he's got things he wants to do. So, yeah, Neri and I are just supporting him as are his sisters. But yeah, it was a crazy time. I mean, I didn't want to come last year, as hard as that was. Neri and I were coming to watch the race. Obviously, that had happened about a month before. I'd cancelled the trip. But then we got through the initial medical emergency, and it was rehab, and a few of the doctors and the counsellors said, part of his recovery is mental. It's not just physical, and that's a very important part. And as much as you guys are supporting him, everybody just can't be keeping a bedside vigil every day. You've got to get out and
do your own life.
You've got to live. He needs to see that that's important for him. So yeah, I came here, and actually it was great for me to be around friends and people I consider family. So I'm glad I made the trip last year, and I got home, I think, fully invigorated to get back into rehab with Oz, and he's doing great. So I appreciate you asking.
Well, it's fascinating about that. I remember one of our wheelchair athletes, this guy Glenn Hartrick, told me once, he said, when you're in a hospital and basically the whole world revolves around you. And he goes, you have an obligation, and I'm sure Ozzy felt this, to if you're every day going, poor me, poor me, poor me, then everybody's going to keep putting in. He says, you are the barometer for everybody else. And if you're upbeat and happy, and you have to have people you can vent to, but if you're upbeat and happy, then people can move on with their life because they're as paralyzed as you are. Because they can't move on and do anything else.
It's so true. The mental side of everything is so important. And, just a few things. One of the things the head neurologist, who was a brilliant man, he's still Aussie's doctor, he's a professor, he said, no one will be advocating for your son as powerfully as you and your wife. So ask the questions, challenge the doctors, push on. We were lucky we got Aussie into the hyperbaric chamber, which is one thing when I saw you on a lead drive
about that
last year. The first thing you said to me is, has he been in the hyperbaric chamber? So, and also the neurologist said to me, stroke rehab it's like endurance training. It's about repetition and consistency, and that's one thing that I know.
A little bit.
Yeah, I know a bit about. So as much as in the early stages, Neri was huge for our family emotionally, but also her medical connections, and just being a mum. I think when we moved through that into the rehab, that's why I sort of came into my own a little more, and I could contribute more to Aussie. But yeah, it's crazy. It's your journey in life. It's never smooth sailing for anyone. We were very lucky. We walked out of the hospital after 2 months, sorry. And life goes on in a great way for us.
Ironically, you were involved with a charity before this that really became part of your life.
It's one of life's crazy coincidences. The Starlight Foundation in Australia do huge things for sick kids. They work in and around the children's hospitals. They have volunteers in the hospitals who go around. They dress up as clowns. They're called captains. They bring joy to the kids. When they're immobilised in bed, they bring them Lego or video games. The focus is always on fun, being happy, and on the things you can do, not the things you can't do. I'd been an ambassador for them for about 2 or 3 years. A lot of a lot of charities, their fundraising drives are around swim, bike or run. So initially it was a month of swimming, clocking up the Ks. The last 2 years it was a cycling challenge in September, and I was leading rides for them regularly, and the last ride that I led for the Starlight Foundation was 36 hours before Aussie had his stroke. And the crazy irony was we'd been trying to organise tours to go and see the Starlight rooms, but because of COVID restrictions we couldn't get in. And then of course we got the tour that no parent wants, first-hand tour, but they do amazing work, and I was a proud ambassador for them again this year. Got Aussie on TV. He did a little TV segment promoting the foundation and the charity, and they raised a lot of great money. They'll be helping sick kids, and it's great work that they do. It's super important work.
In terms of Aussie and his cross-country buddies and track buddies, I bet they've been a huge part of this.
We were so lucky. I guess what you put out in the world comes back to help you at some point, and we got so much support. We were at the hospital 24 hours a day. We'd come home. People had left meals for us. All the sporting clubs that we're involved with through our kids rallied around. Of course, we had 2 other daughters. Our eldest, Lucy, was doing her final high school exams at the time. It was a challenging time, but people rallied around us. We had great support across the board. It's one of the really nice things, when you need help, people come out of the woodwork to help you.
Absolutely do.
And it's one of the great things in life. And we were so lucky. We had enormous support, not only emotionally, which is super important, but also with the logistics of having 2 other daughters and things like that. So we're incredibly lucky.
So saw some great video yesterday of you running with Caden Lieto. And flashing back to 2008, 2009, and you and his dad racing here, right? And Chris was always that guy off the front of the bike, and you were always the guy running him down. And I think it was the 2009 race where it was closer and closer to the finish line every year.
Yep.
And his son is a pro now, or trying to be a pro. And running with him yesterday while his dad is shooting video, that's pretty cool.
It was very cool. I think it's one of the best things about being involved in this sport. You win some, you lose some, but you make some great friendships that outlast all the results, great connections. And Chris and I had an amazing rivalry. Finished first and second at a couple of world championships over different distances. We had a few epic battles, one in Boise, Idaho, a few different races here. Honu, the 70.3 race, and of course the main race here in October. And we just formed a friendship. Whenever we were in town for the race, Chris and his family would invite my family over. We'd go and have a barbecue at their house and we'd hang out. And I've been following Caden. He was a really good surfer.
Yes.
But he's pivoted and wants to get into triathlon. He's a great little athlete. So Chris asked me if I would have a run with him, and I was absolutely the highlight of my week, to be honest.
Sure.
Having a run with him yesterday.
Was he surging on you?
He put me.
His dad was probably going, "Why don't you do me a favor and drop this guy?"
He took some revenge for his dad for sure. We did. It was the longest run I'd done in a while. We did 10 miles with a few tempo efforts, and it was. He's on a program doing his training, and it was just great to be out on a Leahy Drive running with him, and we chatted, and it was great. And actually, when I got home after the athletes welcome banquet last night, I was looking back. I was telling my wife about it. I rang home. I was speaking to Neri, and she said, "Go back through your photo album. I'm sure there'll be a photo of Caden and Lucy doing the Kiki Dip and Dash."
Yes.
Yeah. So
you found that. You posted that.
There
that
were
was
plenty.
wonderful.
There were plenty of photos of them together. Yeah. Actually, the one I wanted to post was a little video interview Neri did. She interviewed Caden and Lucy. I think Caden was 09, so he was 6 and Lucy was 4. And they just done the Kiki Dip and Dash. They had their Gatorades, and my wife was interviewing them. So it was their own version of Breakfast with Bob, I guess. And that was so funny. But I posted a photo, little throwback of them together.
That's so
racing.
Cool.
Yeah, so they're the great things, I think. You form friendships and relationships throughout your racing career that last forever.
My favorite story from that Boise 70.3, I was interviewing Lieto once, and he said, Crowe got me again. He goes, so when we started the run, I told the lead cyclist, let me know if somebody's coming. Let me know. And he goes, no problem. So the whole time Chris kept saying, anybody coming? Nope, nobody's coming. He says he got to about mile 13, and the guy goes, uh-oh. Uh-oh. And he's like, what? He's right there. How about a little warning? How about a little heads up? Uh-oh was the only thing you got. And it was like a couple hundred yards left in the race. When did you get him?
20 meters before the finish line. It was a great race. So the story there is we'd raced the week before here at the 70.3.
Yeah.
And it was a great field. I think Luke McKenzie was in the race.
Yeah.
Paul Matthews, maybe Greg Bennett. I can't remember exactly who. Pete Jacobs. But Chris absolutely torched us on the bike. Had, I think, a 6-minute lead, which is enormous lead after
for a half marathon,
56 miles. And I caught him. In the run. I won. He finished second. And 8 days later, we raced again in Boise. Slightly different conditions. It was still hot and windy. And I actually rode with him for about 50 of the 56 miles that day. And he only had a minute lead off the bike. And I thought, this is a done deal. I mean, he had the second quickest run that day. He ran amazing. And I was working hard. And I kept thinking, relax, you'll get him. And the miles are ticking by and I'm not getting close. And in fact, I think he ran away. I think he extended the lead. And I was lucky. I got sight of him very late. And I think in that situation, when you see someone late, it's easy to be the hunter.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So, but we were just laying down at the finish line and he was saying, what do I have to do? And of course I wanted to win, but you feel a little empathy for him.
I remember when Mark caught Yves Cordier at Nice, he says you have to be ruthless.
Yeah.
You have to be ruthless. You're racing. You can shake hands afterwards, but you can't. And Yves had a 7-minute lead, and he had a whole entourage. He's from Nice. Yeah. Mark said, I felt so bad, but, it's racing.
You got to do.
Got to do. Crowy, always a pleasure,
Yeah.
man. Thanks for taking so much time, and have a great time. It'll be fun hanging out with you tomorrow and not having the race.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm super excited. I think it's one of the most competitive professional fields
Ever. It's amazing.
There's 7 or 8 girls who really could win if they have their
No
day.
question.
So, yeah, we're excited to watch. Can't
It'll be
wait.
fun. Craig Alexander, everybody. Poncho Man, take us out.
It's Aloha Friday, gonna swim back in run day. Cause it's breakfast with Bob.
I'm Poncho Man. Welcome, everybody.